Hello and welcome to Daily News Analysis for KAS examination in English. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the Deccan Herald newspapers along with the practice questions. In case you have any queries while I conduct this session, you may also put it on the live chat as well. All your queries will be immediately answered. I'll ensure that all your doubts are also clarified. So what are you waiting for? Hit the like button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants as well. Let's get started and look at the first article for the day, which is the first state in India to launch an electric vehicle policy. Goa, Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra. The answer to this is Karnataka. Why have we picked up this practice questions? That is because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to EV charging stations. This article says Karnataka tops the country in terms of public electric vehicle charging stations with 5,059 according to statistics from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand that when it comes to EV, that is the electric vehicle, the first state to launch it as a part of a policy happens to be the state of Karnataka. This can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. Why? Because UPSC examinations in the past, KPSC examination in the past has always looked at which has been the pioneer state. So when it comes to the EV, that is the electric vehicle policy, Karnataka happens to be a pioneer when it comes to drafting of the policy. What does this article speak about? This article currently speaks about the public charging stations. What are we speaking about? There are two types of charging stations. One is the public and the other happens to be the private. What are these charging stations? When it comes to the vehicles, which are electric vehicles, what they require is a constant supply of charging. And these charging, when created by the state, which means by the government, that happens to be the public charging stations. And if it is created by the private, it happens to be the private charging stations. So this article currently goes on to say that when it comes to the state of Karnataka, it has created massive number of public charging stations. So Karnataka tops the country in terms of public electric vehicle charging stations with as many as 5,059. If we look into the numbers, Delhi has about 1886, 2.74 lakh EV vehicles. Then when we speak about Uttar Pradesh, it has about 583 charging stations. When it comes to Karnataka, it has about 5,059 charging stations with as many as 3.31 lakh vehicles. Tamil Nadu has 643 charging stations with 2.20 lakh vehicles. And then what we have is Maharashtra, which happens to have about 3,079 charging stations with 4.15 lakh vehicles. So if you have any questions in this, please do put it on the comment section so that we can discuss in an elaborate way. And when it comes to the state of Karnataka, what we have is Bengaluru, which happens to have the maximum number of charging stations. So what do we understand by this? This can be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. So what does this article speak about? This article says that Karnataka has the maximum public charging stations. Now if we juxtapose, what do we mean by juxtapose? If we hold two things together, whether public charging stations are more or the private charging stations are more as a whole. As a whole, what we have is the private charging stations, which mean to say the government has created, yes, number of charging stations, but we also have the private sector as well, private entities as well, private organizations. They have also created maximum number of charging stations. So which has created more? Is it the public or the private? It happens to be the private. This can be important from your preliminary examination point of view. And when it comes to the state of Karnataka, it is BESCOM which is holding the control of electricity. What has BESCOM done? When it comes to the state, it has created these charging stations. That is, BESCOM has created these charging stations. Under what policy or program or initiative has it created these charging stations? So BESCOM has created primarily from the faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicle scheme. So there is a scheme that is initiated by the central government. And this scheme happens to be the FAME scheme. What is it? Faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles. Under this scheme, we have the BESCOM, which has created the number of EV stations. Then BESCOM also has its own capital expenditure as well. The state of Karnataka also gives it some money, and this money is also taken up by BESCOM, and ultimately this expenditure, that is whatever money is given by the state of Karnataka, that money is also used for the creation of the EV station machines. Hi Mahirahi, good morning. Yes, we have BESCOM, which is Karnataka top, and it has created number of these EV charging stations. And finally, we have the state transport department's green cess funds via the public-private partnership model, and they have also created these EV charging stations. So what are the three things? One is the FAME scheme. Second is that the state government has given money to BESCOM. BESCOM has used this money to create EV charging stations, and third happens to be state transport department's green cess funds. When we look into these EV charging stations, what we have is the job that is created by the Karnataka government as well as by the Indian government. So we have something called as the EV policy 2023 and 28. According to it, they would be creating about 1 lakh jobs and attract an investment of as many as 50,000 crores. So we have the EV policy. According to this policy, as many as 1 lakh jobs will be created. So this happens to be very, very important from your preliminary examination point of view. And as Mahirani is saying, the FAME comes under the Ministry of Heavy Industries. Yes, she is absolutely right. So if you have any important information that you wish to share, also put it on the comment section as well. Why? Because this will also help other people as well, so that they would also understand that you are part of this entire process. And thank you, Mahirani. You have been putting some of the important information on the comment section. So how does these EV vehicles increase over a period of time? That is because the government has also taken up initiatives. For example, if you take the example of the state of Uttar Pradesh, what has Uttar Pradesh done? There are e-rickshaws in place. What are these e-rickshaws? Let's say, for example, a person gets down in the metro station. From the metro station, what you require is the endpoint connectivity. So these e-rickshaws are created, which is why the number of electric vehicles have been increasing over a period of time. Then we also have the EV policies taken by different states. For example, we have the state of Karnataka, we have the state of Maharashtra. They have their own EV policies as well. Why are the EV vehicles increasing? One, because there is e-rickshaws in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which has molded it. Then what we have is the process of EV policies which are created by the government, and as a result, we have these EV charging stations which are increasing in couple of states. Then we have number of workers. What do these workers do? For example, if you are in Bengaluru, let's say you order it on Swiggy, or you are a foodie and you order it on Zomato. So you have these people, the food delivery agents and the delivery agents as well. Let's say, for example, Flipkart or Myntra or Amazon. What do? They deliver the goods to you, they deliver the food to you. So they make use of these electric vehicles as well. So the delivery workers basically make use of these EV charging stations to charge their vehicles and ultimately deliver. Then what we have is the battery run vehicle models. Then what we have is charge stations that are created, all because they want to ultimately ensure that the pollution that is created by these genuine vehicles, by these vehicles like the petrol, the fuel, is over a period of time taken over by the electric vehicles. That is why we have these important factors taken up by the state government. So remember, we have the state of Karnataka, which tops the country in terms of public electric vehicle charging stations with as many as 5,059 according to statistics from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says seasonal lakes do dry in summer, but it is time to desilt to raise storage capacity. There are a couple of important viewpoints that we have to understand from this article. What does this article speaks about? The article here speaks about the lakes in the state of Karnataka with special focus with respect to Bengaluru. One is that. Second, what it speaks about is the concept called as silting. Third, what we have to understand is the concept called as desilting. What is this desilting? We will understand this eventually. Then what we will also understand is the process of dredging as well. how dredging can be harmful. This we will try and understand, and over a period of time we will understand what is the way forward when it comes to such issues. The article also speaks about dissolved oxygen capacity. It also speaks about the fecal content that is present in the lakes. Why? Because there is no filtration process that is going on, and as a result there is direct dumping without any filtration process. All this is causing greater harms to the lakes in the Bengaluru city, and how we can revamp it, rejuvenate it, is what is this article all about. When we look into what happens to the lakes in Bengaluru, what we have to understand is they are not perennial in nature. What do we mean by perennial in nature? That it does not contain water all the time. If you look at the states of, let's say, Himalayan states, or for example in Uttar Pradesh, or for example in any other states in the northern part, there are perennial rivers that are in place. What are perennial rivers? That there are water that is present all the time in all these lakes. That happens to be the first important factor. When it comes to these perennial lakes, they have water all the time. But when it comes to the city like Bengaluru or some of the other important lakes in Karnataka, these are not perennial in nature, which means to say that they do not have water all the time. They also go dry during a specific period of summers. Why? That is because we do not have any glacial melting that takes place. We do not have constant inflow of water to these lakes, and during a specific period like in summer, these lakes also go dry. So it is at this particular moment what the author says is, and what this article discusses is in the form of silting. So what happens whenever there is river or lake? What happens? There is deposition of the silt. What is this silt? This silt is nothing but the kind of a, let's say, a material or a sediment. This is generally larger than clay but smaller than sand. So these are nothing but sediments which are larger than clay but smaller than sand. And as and when, let's say for example, this happens to be a lake. The depth of this lake, let's assume hypothetically for the sake of explanation, it is about 15 feet. This for the sake of explanation. So what happens with constant sedimentation and constant silt that is being added, the water carrying capacity or the water content of this particular lake will drop. That is, the water carrying capacity of this particular lake is about 15 feet. But now there is heavy deposition of the silt that takes place in this particular lake. Because there is heavy deposition of the silt that is present in this particular lake, what would happen? The storage capacity drops over a period of time. So currently it is about 15 feet. Let's say hypothetically, because of the silt and the sedimentation, this number drops and the water carrying capacity is just about 12 feet. So the 3 feet is missing primarily because of the silt and the sedimentation. And as a result, the reduction of the water carrying or the water storage capacity of this particular lake drops over a period of time. How does the silt collect? Let's say for example, we have a close by nalla, or let's say for example, you have other sources from which this particular water enters the lake. As and when it moves, what it also carries is the mud, the clay component, the sand component, the silt component, and as a result, this mud gets stored onto this particular lake. So over a period of time, in order to ensure that we control the silt process, what we have is a process called as desilting. So what happens in silt? Silt is nothing but that particular mud component or the sand component or the clay component which is brought down by these nallas, so on and so forth. They get deposited in the lake. Because they are deposited in the lake, the natural capacity of this lake is about 15 feet. Now about 3 feet is filled by the silt. So this silt will actually reduce the water storage capacity of that particular lake, and this ultimately means that we have to ensure that this silt is removed. This silt has to be removed so that the water carrying capacity or the storage capacity increases to its optimum level. So what do? This is where we have a process called as desilting. What is desilting in this particular place? Desilting a lake or a pond or a river is basically removing this silt. So basically whatever mud or the sand or the clay is present in this particular part, this can be removed through a process called as desilting. So you will have is these huge vehicles that come up to this particular place. They dredge it, they remove it, and ultimately this soil or this silt is taken off from that particular lake through a process called as desilting. So what exactly happens when it comes to desilting? It is that particular process where silt or whatever excessive mud that is present is removed through a process called as dredging. So what happens in dredging? We have heavy machinery that is employed, and it will take off this mud or the clay component so that the lake is restored to its optimum storage capacity. That is what happens in desilting and dredging process. But this article further goes on to say that what we have is the fecal material that is collected. What happens, let's say for example, there is a lake. What happens, there are these huge apartments that are created in Bengaluru, and we also have couple of places where there is no filtration process that are present. So the fecal material, that is the human discharge, is directly dumped into these lakes as well. For example, the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board shows an alarming rise in the fecal coliform, which happens to be measured as the most probable number MPN per 100 ml in most city lakes. This fecal coliform is a bacteria found in the human feces. The National Green Tribunal has mandated that fecal coliform in water flowing out of the sewage water plants into lakes should not exceed 230 MPN, with a desirable at an even lower standard of 100 MPN. But within the lakes, it is expected to be 300 to 500 MPN per 100 ml. However, when you consider the lakes in Bengaluru, the Alsuru Lake, which is categorized as D by KSPCB for fish breeding, the fecal coliform is 4,000, but this pales in comparison with 92,000 in Herohalli Lake, 40,000 in Varturu Lake, 79,000 in Kaikondrahalli Lake, and 79,000 in Puttenahalli Lake. So the fecal content is far in excess when you consider all these lakes. So if at all people consume the water, if at all people consume the fish that is taken out of these lakes, this could ultimately impact the people who are consuming it. So there is likely consequences of people having health related ailments as well. So this becomes very important. Good morning, Sneha. Good morning. If you have any questions, you can always ask us, Sneha. And good morning, Mahirani. And you have been helping us a lot. And for lake prevention, Mahirani also says that what we have is an appointment of A.K. Patil committee. And this is very clear. Yes, you are right. And A.K. Patil committee happens to be with respect to lake conservation and lake ensuring the beauty of the lake. This is important, and whatever content she's been putting is very interactive in nature. So if you want any interactive session, do put up on the comment section and we will answer all your queries as well. That apart, this article also focuses on a couple of other aspects. The article also speaks about dissolved oxygen. We have the lakes where dissolved oxygen is measured by the institutional authorities. What is dissolved oxygen? It is the amount of oxygen that is dissolved within the lake, that is within the underwater. So a majority of lakes have DO levels, that is dissolved oxygen levels, within the permissible limit of 5 mg per liter. But scientists and lake experts have questioned these results since they do not follow the dawn and the dusk method. What do we mean by dawn and the dusk method? This is where you have to measure the dissolved oxygen before the sunrise and after the sunset. What do we mean by dawn and dusk method? Whenever you have morning, let's say for example at around 11 a.m. or for example at around 2 p.m. so on and so forth. If at all there is an institution which goes to the lake and measures the dissolved oxygen capacity, it basically means that there is a lot of activities that is already ongoing in the lake. Why? That is because at that particular temperature, photosynthesis keeps happening. You have the temperature that is coming in, you have the sunlight that is coming in, you have the plants and the organisms which are also active and they interact with each other. During this particular period, if at all the dissolved oxygen level is measured, it also means that it can increase over a period of time. It shows a symbolic meaning that the dissolved oxygen is enough for the sustenance of the other living beings as well as other organisms. But if you measure before the sunlight, the dissolved oxygen capacity may not be optimum, which is why the author in this particular case says that when it comes to the lakes in Bengaluru, the measurement that is taking place with respect to the dissolved oxygen is factually incorrect because we are not doing it before the sunrise or after the sunset where there are not much interactions. Only when you measure it at that particular period of time, you will know whether the dissolved oxygen is enough for that particular lake or not. but during the process, during the day when photosynthesis is active, you measure the DO or the dissolved oxygen level, it will obviously be far in excess. So do not measure. This happens to be another major concern with respect to the lakes in Bengaluru. So what are the three major concerns? One is the silt, second happens to be the fecal material, the third happens to be the dissolved oxygen levels. These three components is what is being discussed as part of the lake rejuvenation. In order to rejuvenate the lake, in order to ensure that these lakes are stored to the optimum level, we have the Ministry of Jal Shakti, which has formulated National Framework for Sediment Management. What is this National Framework for Sediment Management? As we said, initially there is lot of silt that is collected. This silt has to be removed, let's say for example to the desilting process or the dredging process, so on and so forth. So it is the Ministry of Jal Shakti which has come up with a formulation. It has instructed guidelines, it has asked the local bodies, it has asked the state bodies, how do you go about it? So guidelines are issued as part of this process. So remember, for the desilting process, what we have is a Ministry of Jal Shakti which has formulated a national framework for sediment management. This national framework for sediment management will help in desilting process. That is the way forward. Apart from that, whenever we are speaking about the desilting process, it also has its own share of advantages as well. What are these advantages? Whenever you're taking out the soil or for example the silt, this silt will also have the decayed organic matter. This decayed organic matter can also be used as good manure as well. For example, if we take the lake of Varthuru Lake, there are about 350 to 400 farmers who are using that as manure. So the desilting process, the soil that is collected already has a lot of manure in it, already has a lot of organic content in it. So take it out and give it to the farmers who can use it as the manure. So this article also says out that whenever the desilting process takes place, that can be used as a manure. So it is not just the human beings, but other organisms will also have to be taken care of. So when we say desilting process, lake conservation, lake prevention of the pollution, building a habitat around the water bodies for birds and wildlife to also thrive will also have to be considered, is what is this article all about. So basically this article focuses on the major component which happens to be the lake. The lake has three issues here. One is the silting process, remove the silt and ensure there is optimum capacity. Second, we have the fecal material. So this fecal material has to be eliminated. So take in and bring in number of steps. And third is to do with the dissolved oxygen level. So in order to ensure, measure this during the process of dawn and dusk method and not when the photosynthesis is active. And we have the measures that we have to take up, is what is this article all about. So these are very important from your examination point of view. And yes, Neha, we are speaking about dissolved oxygen. Anu Sikal, good morning. And if you have any questions, Anu Sikal, please do put it on the comment section so that I can answer your query. So this is what we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says, Plea to popularize dung gas plants. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about the biogas. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about the gobar gas. So this article currently goes on to say that we have the governor of Karnataka who has suggested to the Khadi and the Village Industries Commission to draw up a comprehensive long-term plan for installing and popularizing gobar gas plants all over the country. So what is the focus of this article? The focus of this article is in reference to the gobar gas. The focus of this article is in reference to how this entire mechanism works. This can be important from your preliminary as well as your mains examination point of view. So what is gobar gas? Gobar gas happens to be a mixture of methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen and hydrogen sulfide. The major outcome or the constituent of gobar gas happens to be methane. It is produced by anaerobic degradation of animal waste like cow dung or plant waste in the presence of water. So what is the major input that goes into the gobar gas? As the very name denotes, it is the cow dung. So it is the cow dung which is the waste that is generated or the secretion that is secreted, the endpoint of the digestive system of the cattle that is collected, and that happens to be the major input when it comes to the gobar gas. So what exactly happens? How does this entire mechanism work? So first, what we take is a slurry of the cattle dung as well as water. So this happens to be an inlet. So what you will have is an inlet, which basically means this is where all the waste of the cow dung that is added. Then in this mixing tank, what we have is a cattle dung that is added along with the water. So then this will connect you to an inlet pipe, as you can see from the image, and from the inlet pipe it enters this main area. So what we have is an underground digester tank. So what we have initially is an input. So let's assume for a moment you have a slurry. So you have the cow dung that is added along with the water. This happens to be the input. From this input, what you have is a pipe. This enters the digester tank. So through a funnel, through a pipe, it enters, and this happens to be a digester tank. So once it is collected here, then you will have all the processes that are ultimately formulated, and then in this particular there is temperature, pressure variations that takes place, and ultimately an outcome through the gas valve. What you have is the outlet for the biogas, and then what you have is the partition valve. Then what you have is a support for the pipe, and ultimately the gas is generated, which acts as the energy. So the waste in the form of cow dung is taken into a compartment with water content in it. Temperature and pressure variations happen, and ultimately what you have is a biogas that is generated. So this article goes on to say, let's popularize it, let's understand it, let's work on it, so that we would be able to work on these aspects and generate energy out of it. So this is what is called as the gobar gas or the biogas process. Although cattle dung has been recognized as the chief raw material for the biogas plants, there are other materials like the night soil, which actually means the night soil basically means that the human excreta that we have, this can also be used. Then we have the poultry litter as well. Agricultural waste can also be used. So what are the components that can be added as the input? One happens to be the cow dung. That apart, the human excreta, which is the night soil, that can be used. The poultry litter as well as agriculture waste. This can be used to generate the gobar gas or the biogas. What are the advantages of it? When we speak about the gobar gas, this happens to be an environmental friendly one. It happens to be an eco-friendly fuel. So once these waste, this is ultimately waste, it is not for any use, but why not convert waste into haste? That is because when we are using this entire process, it is eco-friendly in nature, it is environment friendly in nature. We are taking away the waste and we are also creating something new as well. So this waste is converted into something healthy in the form of energy. It not only produces biogas but also gives us a nutrient-rich slurry that can be used for the crop production. It prevents the health hazards of smoke in poorly ventilated rural households that use dung cake and firewood for cooking. What exactly happens? We have the Prime Minister of India who has also come up with the LPG program as well. Why? That is because according to this particular program initiated by the government of India for providing LPG to the women in the rural sector, what do these women do? They get the wood from far off places. They ultimately start burning this wood for the daily activities, for example cooking, so on and so forth. As and when they burn these wood, firewood, what happens? They inhale a lot of toxic air, and this toxic air is itself a harmful process. It is equivalent to burning the cigarettes as well. So in order to prevent the health hazards, what we can make use of is use these dung cakes in the process of biogas, in the process of gobar gas, so that energy is generated. If they are burning these dung cakes or the firewood, they inhale a lot of toxic air. This can be prevented and health hazards can be prevented. So if we are using these cow dungs for the dung cakes and then we are using it for cooking, so on and so forth, it increases the health related ailments. Instead, why not use the cow dung for the production of the biogas? That can be an alternative. It helps to keep the environment clean, as there would be no open heap of dung or other waste materials that attract flies, insects and infections, and availability of biogas would also reduce the use of firewood, and hence trees could also be saved. These are some of the advantages that we have when it comes to the cattle dung. Good morning, Innocent. Good morning. If you have any queries, Innocent, please put it on the comment section and let's make it as interactive as possible. So these are the advantages that we have when it comes to the use of cow dung or the night soil or the poultry litter or agricultural waste for the generation of the gobar gas. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says why OpenAI's new video generator Sora is making a splash. This article is important from your preliminary examination where they can ask you Sora was recently in news. What is it? This is from the preliminary examination point of view. From the mains examination point of view, they can ask you questions with respect to artificial intelligence. They can ask you questions with respect to the advantages and disadvantages of artificial intelligence. And from the interview point of view, they can also ask you a couple of questions like, is artificial intelligence taking over the intelligence of the human beings? Is artificial intelligence going to rule the human beings in the near future? Is artificial intelligence taking away the work of the people? Is what are the questions that you will be asked in your prelims, mains as well as interview. Nitin C, thank you. Your explanation is good, sir. Thank you so much. And this is all because of you all. And he says, please guide us which article or points to be noted or referred for examination from the newspaper. There are many pages and news. Yes, I will explain as well. And at the same time, whatever article that we have picked up for the explanation part, all these are important from your examination point of view. Since the focus is majorly on the KAS examinations, what we have picked up is articles explicitly for it. And that apart, these articles are also important from a UPSC examination point of view. Nitin C, we will ensure that you will crack the KAS examination and we will bring up all those articles that are important from the examination point of view. So from the preliminary examination point of view, remember, we have Sora. What is Sora? Sora happens to be an AI model that can generate videos up to a minute long. So how many minutes is it currently taking the video for? It is for a 1 minute video featuring highly detailed scenes, complex camera motion, multiple characters with vibrant emotion. It can create videos based on a still image or extend existing footage with new material. So let me explain what is this Sora all about. Let's say for example, you want to watch a video of yourself. So you and I, we would not be able to enter the moon because we are not the astronauts. So let's assume hypothetically that you say that I want to go on the moon and walk on the moon. So what do you say? You put in a text. So you type in a text, or you can also put in a vocal message as well, that you say, for example, Ajay Narayan, advocate Ajay Narayan has gone to moon and is walking on the moon. This is a statement that I am making. So what will the AI do? Sora as a text to video AI tool, what will it do? It will convert this text into a video. So it will ensure that it takes that image of me. It will ensure that I'm walking on the moon. So it is converting the text into a video. So what does Sora do? Sora can produce videos with a resolution of up to 1920 into 1080 and up to 1080 into 190. It can handle different genres and themes such as fantasy, sci-fi, horror, comedy and more. So what it basically does is it converts the text into a video. Or for example, let's say you have a favorite celebrity. Let's say for example, you have something that you are imagining and you want to see how that will turn into a video. So you make a text, you send a vocal text on the Sora. This Sora will convert the text into a video. So it will generate a 1 minute long video. So where you would be able to imagine me walking on the moon, or I have a dog with me walking on the moon. Such videos can be created. So the artificial intelligence will basically have a set of videos. For example, there are preloaded videos that are already present on this particular tool. What it will understand is a subject matter. What is the subject here? That me, Ajay Narayan, advocate Ajay Narayan, is the subject. What will I do? I am walking on the moon. These two are the subject matters. It will interlink these two subject matters. It will create a video saying that Ajay Narayan is walking on the moon, and that happens to be the subject matter. So it already has a preloaded set of videos. So it will take this preloaded set of videos, integrate the subject matter, and will give us an outcome in the form of a video. So this happens to be a text to video synthesis AI tool. So what is Sora? Sora happens to be a text to video synthesis tool. How will it help? It will create movie trailers, short films, animations, documentaries from the text script. So I give a text, I input the text, or I can give a vocal message asking Sora to create so and Sora can help filmmakers and storytellers to visualize the ideas and concepts, create compelling and original videos. Sora can also help viewers to discover new and interesting content based on their preferences. So let's say I want to create a content, it will also help me imagine as well. Since I am giving a text, Sora already has a video in it, it is playing with it and ultimately gives me an outcome. Because of this outcome, I would be able to recreate the whole picture as well. It is also giving a new creation. Because of this new creation and an outcome, I will have new thoughts, I would be able to process new thoughts, and new videos can also be created. Let's say for example, you love these shorts or the reels that you create on the Instagram as well as YouTube. You also want to generate a certain amount of data and you would also want to make money. You already have a clarity about what is the outcome that you require. But what if the AI tool is also creating a much better outcome for you? So this entire thought process can change. You would be able to revamp, recreate this entire video. So enhancing existing videos with the new elements such as adding special effects, changing the background, inserting new characters can be done through Sora. So Sora can help video editors and producers to improve and modify their videos and add more variety and creativity. Sora can also help viewers to enjoy more personalized and interactive videos. But there are a couple of concerns as well, or you can call it as challenges. What are these concerns and the challenges? This is not right now given to all the people, which basically means in case I want to use it, can I use Sora for now? No. Why? Because it is in the testing phase. There are people who are still working on it. Only few researchers and people who know how to use this technology are currently using it. It is also a costly one as well, and at the same time it harbingers new change, which happens to be something which you are all seeking of. But at the same time, when new change also comes, it also has its own share of challenges. What if Sora is actually banking on intellectual bankruptcy? People will not start using their thought process. So if Sora is giving you everything on its own, there will be also intellectual bankruptcy as well. We will not be able to apply our mind and thought process, and ultimately everything is driven by the artificial intelligence. So where is the human brain coming into? So that happens to be another major challenge as well as the concern. This will also take away number of jobs as well as employment opportunities. As of now, you have people who are creating it, they are the one who are manifesting these thoughts and ultimately creating it as an outcome. What if there are these huge people who are working in the corporate sector, they're able to buy these tools, eliminate the people who are creating such content? This can also lead to loss of employment opportunities. So what we should understand is that yes, Sora happens to be a text to video synthesis, but this has its own share of advantages, but it also has challenges as well. So going forward, we have to embrace it, accept it, that there is going to be charges, there are going to be some challenges. How do we overcome these challenges is what we have to keenly wait upon. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says, why have fresh protests erupted in Senegal? When it comes to this topic, there are three factors here. One, from the preliminary examination point of view, we have to understand where is Senegal, and we also have to understand from the mains point of view, why are protests taking place in Senegal. And the third important factor is with respect to ECOWAS, which is also important from the preliminary examination. Where is Senegal located? It happens to be a country which is on the western side of Africa. So there can be two types of questions. One is, where is Senegal located? It is on the western side of Africa. Is it a landlocked country? No, it is not a landlocked country because it has access to the sea. Which are the countries in and around Senegal? So if we look into this map, on the northern part, what we have is Mauritania, and on the eastern part, what we have is Mali. On the southern part, we have Guinea-Bissau as well as Guinea. This happens to be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. So remember, what we have is Senegal, which happens to be a Western African country. It has 4 countries or 5 countries in and around it, which are these Mauritania, Mali, Guinea as well as Guinea-Bissau. These are very, very, very important from your preliminary examination point of view. Now when we speak about Senegal, it derives its name, it's a country's name, but it derives its name from a river, and that happens to be Senegal River. Initially, when we speak about how a country was, who was governing it, which was the country holding and wielding power, when we speak about India, we have the British who were controlling India. Similarly, when it comes to Senegal, the independence of the French Africa from the French colonial rule. So it was under the control of France. So remember, when it comes to India, we were under the control of the British Empire. We did have many other countries which came over. These were all colonialists, but majorly we were under the control of the British Empire. Similarly, when it comes to Senegal, it is under the control of the French colonial rule, and as a result, French happens to be one of the official languages of Senegal. Most of the population is on the coast when it comes to Senegal and works in agriculture or other food industries. Other major industries include mining, tourism as well as services. Senegal as a country is very poor. It is poorly developed country. It does not have much of the resources as well, and this happens to be one of the poor countries in Africa. They do not have much means to develop, and as a result, they are mostly into agriculture, other related food industries, mining, tourism as well as services. So it happens to be one of the poor countries that is present in Africa. So this can be very important from your preliminary examination. The second important factor is from the mains examination point of view, which basically speaks about the protest. Why are there protests right now? As of now, there should have been elections that have been taken place on February 25th. But we do not have these elections. Why? That is because there are a lot of people who basically believe that there are issues when it comes to their own democratic process. So people are protesting it, and because they are protesting, because they started off with these protests, these elections that were supposed to have been conducted in February 25th is now postponed to December 15. So because the elections are postponed from February 25th to December 15, where the present leader will hold the presidential elections only in the month of December. That is why there are protests that are right now taking place in Senegal. People are opposing this entire process, and there are military coups that have also taken place in couple of states in Africa. The third component that we have to look into is ECOWAS. ECOWAS happens to be a political and economic union of about 15 countries in West Africa. So which are these 15 countries? We have Benin, Burkina Faso, Cabo Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone as well as Togo. There are these 15 countries which are part of ECOWAS. All these countries were the founding members, but there is one country which is not the founding member. Which is it? Please put it on the comment section. So when I say founding members, it means that it was created or brought into picture in 1975. So in 1975, all these countries were part. Founding members basically means when a group was created, all these countries were part of that particular group. But there are some countries which become part of this group over a period of time. Among all these 15 countries, 14 countries were the founding members. That is, when they were created, they were part of it. But one country was eventually becoming part of this entire group. Which is the country is what you have to put on the comment section. Yes, Gambia is one of the neighbor countries. Yes, Nitin, you are right. And when it comes to this union or the group, political and economic union of 15 countries in West Africa, ECOWAS fundamental principles rely on equality, interdependence, solidarity, cooperation, non-aggression, regional peace, promotion of human rights and economic and social justice. That is the intent and the objective as to why this ECOWAS was adopted. From the preliminary examination point of view, remember, the headquarters of ECOWAS is in Abuja, which happens to be the capital of Nigeria, and ECOWAS has supported India's bid for a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. In United Nations Security Council, we have G4 countries which are asking for it. Which are these G4 countries? One of the country which is part of G4 happens to be India. Which are the other countries which are part of G4? Put it on the comment section. So ECOWAS, which happens to be a group, also supports India, that India has to be part of United Nations Security Council. So we have 5 permanent members as of now: United States of America, United Kingdom, France, Russia as well as China. So ECOWAS says India has the right to become the member of the United Nations Security Council. So ECOWAS supports the right of India to become part of the permanent membership. So this is to do with ECOWAS. These are very, very important from your preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article for the day. And when we speak about such questions, why have I taken this article is because there are a couple of questions that are asked in the UPSC and KPSC. For example, in 2023, there was a question. In recent years, Chad, Guinea, Mali and Sudan caught international attention for which of the following reasons is common to all of them: discovery of rich deposits of rare earth elements, establishment of the Chinese military bases, southward expansion of the Sahara Desert, successful coups. What is the answer for it? Please put it on the comment section. And I will take a pause. You also take a pause. So please put it on the comment section. Yes, Pradi, you are absolutely right. It is D, which happens to be successful coups. So what happens in here? You have the leaders of particular country and you also have presidents and prime ministers who, with the support of the military, they take advantage of it and they have a coup in that particular place. So what we have is successful coups. That is why Senegal have taken, because there has been what is called as the coups that have been taking place in couple of African countries. So such questions can be asked in your KPSC KS examinations as well as in the UPSC examination. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article here is speaking about one of the islands. So if you can see here, what we have is the spillover. What is a spillover? What we have is, let's say, the petrol, the fuel that is deposited on the waters of one of the oceanic waters. So this article makes a mention of Tobago Island. So Tobago Island recently was seen in the news. Is part of which country? Remember, it is part of Trinidad and Tobago. So the country is considering declaring an international emergency to deal with the oil spill, which has stained kilometers of its shore and threatens to spread to Caribbean neighbors. So what recently happened was a spillover of oil on the oceanic water of the Tobago Island. So in Tobago Island, in and around it, the water has been polluted. Why? Because there is oil spill that has taken place. But from the preliminary examination point of view, in your KPSC and your KS examination, they can ask you a question. Tobago Island is part of which country? It is part of Trinidad and Tobago. Why is it in news? That is because there has been an oil spill which has resulted in water pollution in this particular island, and as a result this country is planning to call it as an international emergency so that other countries can cooperate to ultimately ensure there is cleaning process that is initiated. This is important from your preliminary examination point of view. And Nitin, yes, you are very active today. Thank you for this. And when it comes to the G4 countries, yes, we have Brazil, Japan, Germany and India, which are part of this G4 countries. There is another question that I have for you all. Nitin is answering, so I want many of you all to answer as well. So what is this coffee club? We have something called as the coffee club. What is this coffee club? Please put it on the comment section as well. Let's make it as interactive as possible. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article is important from sports related articles and can also be important from your preliminary examination. So we have YASHASVRS Jaiswal, who is the third youngest batter to score 2 test double centuries. Why is this important? That is because there are questions that are asked related to sports related queries, and if at all you're going to the interview and you happen to say that your hobby happens to be cricket, so they can in all likelihood ask this question as well. So YASHASVRS Jaiswal became the third youngest to score 2 double hundreds in the test. So Vinod Kambli, 21 years 54 days, is the youngest, while Sir Don Brodman is the second youngest, and Jaiswal also emerged the second fastest 13 innings to score 3 150 plus scores. Neil Harvey holds the record of 10 innings. So this can be very important. So YASHASVRS Jaiswal happens to be the third youngest batter to score 2 test double centuries. First happens to be Vinod Kambli at 21 years. Second happens to be Sir Broadman, 21 years, 318 days. And third happens to be YASHASVRS Jaiswal. These questions can also be asked in your preliminary examination, and if at all you have in your detailed application form given hobbies as cricket, watching cricket or playing cricket, whatsoever it is. In that case, the panelists can also during the interview process ask you such questions. So this is also important from your preliminary examination point of view. So this is it for today. In case you have any queries, please put it on the comment section, or else let's wind it off today's session with this last article. Do you have any queries now that you wish me to answer? Well, I feel that you have no questions, you have understood all topics for the day, and that is it for us. Thank you for watching. All the best.